Mr. Subbing in for Liz, please welcome. And we'll get started with the next panel, and will the panelists please join us? I won't do justice to your bio because I don't know what it is.
Not too different from Liz, but I'll do it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Nice to meet
Derek.
you. Yeah, thanks. Please come on up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And we'll run a bit of a debate shift, so
All right.
we're right on time.
Is there a timer visible or not? No? There's, okay, got it. That's pretty easy to understand. All right. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Derek Kerton. I'm chairman at the Autotech Council in Silicon Valley. And the Autotech Council is a group in Silicon Valley. It's kind of a regional group with a global perspective. So what we do as our mission is find innovation and find cool startups and good technology that applies to mobility. Mobility in the automotive sense, not in the telecom sense from the other room. So, great innovation that applies to mobility and transport. And find those innovators and match them up and connect them quickly to the larger players in the industry. Those large players include the automotive OEMs, and then as tier 1 and tier 2 vendors, and a lot of large middleware and important technology companies like a Qualcomm or an Ericsson as well that put chips in. So we scour up and down Silicon Valley, but in fact the whole country and the whole world to find these guys, and kind of do a regular exhibition of great companies. Our members are the automotive OEMs. So an interesting thing happened starting around 2009, 2010. We started noticing car companies arriving in Silicon Valley and setting up field offices. Historically, there was only a couple of car companies that had offices in Silicon Valley. It was actually a couple of German ones, Volkswagen and BMW. And their purpose in Silicon Valley starting in 1998 was R&D. With our smart people here out of Stanford, Berkeley, good researchers, we're going to do a lab and we're going to do R&D in Silicon Valley. So what arrived in 2010 was a very different kind of office. Car companies started saying, all of a sudden convergence matters to us. So we didn't really care that much about all the internet, what Silicon Valley was doing for year after year after year. We went there and we had PhDs doing research. But all of a sudden this stuff about the internet, mobile connectivity, applications and services, user customization, personalization is mattering a lot more to us. And we know it by the fact that people keep sticking this stupid thing called an iPhone that's driving us nuts. And by the way, this isn't me talking. I think iPhone's great. But they keep sticking this darn thing in front of our $5,000 console entertainment system and displacing us from the user. There is a piece of hardware coming between me and my user in that relationship. And I want to know more about it and I want to be more like it. So that was their main driving force to, 3 years after the iPhone's launch, to start appearing in Silicon Valley and saying, how do we do what this little device is that's like, talk about disintermediation. The smartphone is a physical disintermediation between the center console and the user of the car. So a person goes and buys themselves a Mercedes or an Acura, they pay an upsell for the tech package or the satellite tracking package between $2,000 and $5,000 for this beautiful console. And the user experience is bad enough that they end up putting this device physically and literally disintermediating them from that thing. So the car makers have done a great job. They reduced their development cycles from 5 years to 3 years, and they have worked in conjunction with startups. And then they started showing up in places where innovation was happening, like Silicon Valley. Once again, hence the Autotech Council, we help them reduce their development cycles, find these great ideas sooner. And on deck today, we have 3 of those great ideas that have engaged with some of the car companies. And they're going to tell you a little bit about what they have and what their experience is engaging with the automakers. So that's it for me. I'll introduce them one by one, and we'll give each company their 5 minutes due to kind of talk about what they have. I guess I have Rui is the first. You guys want to go in seated order or in printed order? Yeah. All right. So first up, Rui Costa, who's with Veniam.
Yeah, we're good. Hi. So I was not sure if I was able to present the slide deck or not, so I'll just talk really. Should be up there. I guess we'll have time for questions afterwards.
Do we have a slide deck up there?
I think it's hit the down button. Let's see.
Okay, let's see. I'll do the Alt tab. There's presentations here.
I have a fun video so that way you won't fall asleep. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rui Costa. I'm the managing director of Veniam in the US. Been with the company since the very beginning. The company started in Portugal, but then soon after our Series A, we moved and opened an office in Mountain View, California. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about what is the Internet of Autonomous Vehicles and what is this thing that Veniam has been doing that is so exciting for the IoT smart cities in the automotive industry in general. So this is not working. Okay, here we go. So if we think about the future of mobility, there's a number of applications that come to mind. In particular, the on-demand shared services that we are already using these days that include food delivery, car sharing, transportation, last mile delivery. All of those are fundamental for the future of mobility. And then if you think about what is the next step, there are three fundamental pillars that will actually help those services get to their next phase. And those are the fact that they will be electric, they will be autonomous, and they will be connected. But then if you think a little bit more about this autonomous vehicle and connectivity, so an autonomous vehicle in general produces and has already in it sensors that produce massive amounts of data at a rate that is really, really hard to get out of that vehicle. Then you know about a number of applications that will require data to be downloaded from the internet or the cloud. That include entertainment, software updates, navigation, safety data. All this data needs to be downloaded. And then there's also a bunch of data and applications and services that will require the ability to upload data from the vehicle to the cloud. On top of all this, you will still have internet connection being delivered to the driver that all of a sudden is not driving anymore. He's just sitting inside the car and wants to be connected all the time to the services that he's already using. So in estimate, every vehicle produces about 4 terabytes of data per day that now needs to be transported between the vehicle and the cloud. That's exactly what Veniam is doing. Veniam has a platform that moves massive amounts of data between the vehicles and the cloud, and I will show you how we started building this 4 years ago. And we started, oops, there's sound here. I don't know if I can mute this. Can I mute this? Hold on. I use a Mac, so I have no idea how to mute.
You keep talking, I'll try that.
Okay, I'll try. Just talk loud. I will talk louder. Okay, I'll try. Okay.
That's one way.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you. Okay, I'll just put from the very beginning because...
The speaker's on the far right side of your screen.
Mm-hmm. No, I already muted, so I guess we should be good if we go back to the presentation. Well, sorry about that. Talk about this, there's the cute animations, and the video will start with sound. Jesus, okay, hold on. And now I'll click right there. There we go.
All right.
Good. So we started in Porto, the previous slide, where we connected the entire public bus fleet, garbage collection trucks, and municipality vehicles to deliver a city-scale Wi-Fi connectivity and also collect data from the city for applications. Then we moved to Singapore, where we actually have the entire campus of NUS covered with our mesh networking and providing Wi-Fi to users and having thousands of internet sessions being delivered using these connected vehicles now to the cloud. And then in New York, we already deployed our first vehicle mesh network, and I will explain more of the mesh later on, in downtown New York, where we are actually deploying our technology in one of the most challenging cities to deploy any kind of wireless network. So, but what I really want to tell you is how does this work and what is this, how do we move massive amounts of data between the vehicles and the cloud? So the way it works is that we equip every vehicle with a device called the NetRider that is a multi-network device that includes the 4G LTE network, but also the SRC, which is a technology that we can use for V2X, so vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-anything connectivity. And then we deliver seamless handovers, everything managed from the cloud, and real-time network monitoring and data insights that allows us to understand more how these vehicles communicate. And then when these vehicles connect to each other, they are able to expand the existing infrastructure of a city and providing a number of services in real time, but also delay-tolerant networking that includes cost-effective internet access and open the space for a number of applications that leverage this now high bandwidth, high data-intensive IoT scenario. And then, of course, it's a hub for new applications to come and services, which are relevant for autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, and smart cities in general. And Veniam has been doing this, started in Portugal, but then scaled up to the US and Asia as well. And so far, we have thousands and thousands, well, millions of kilometers of connectivity data that is actually helping us building this platform whose sole goal is building the Internet of Moving Things, but that translates on how do we actually manage to move massive amounts of data between the vehicle and the cloud, and this is what we do today. So I only had 5 minutes just to tease you a little bit, but I guess we'll have time for questions afterwards, so thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So let's go over to, I got David up next, David Rodriguez with GreenRoad.
Yeah.
give him a minute, of course, to fire up his slides.
Actually, I tried to contact Jill prior to, and we never got the template, so I'm going to have to wing this with no presentation. So I'll go back to my sales roots and talk a little bit about what we do just from the hip. GreenRoad's been delivering the backbone of driver safety, what we call driver safety globally, for about 10 years. So being on this panel today with startups, I kind of feel like the old guy who's getting carded for beer at the liquor store. We're technically considered a startup because we're not a blue chip company. We're still PE backed. We are going through a transitional phase right now. We are where we started about 10 years ago with the driver in mind. If you think about commercial fleets worldwide, most of those companies worldwide had always thought about the vehicle. If I can wire the vehicle, get as much data from the vehicle as possible, I can track it, I can see where it is, I can get the most efficiency and safety out of that one particular vehicle in my fleet. And I think what we found over the first 10 years of that phase was that promise of just ultimate efficiency and savings through hardwired telematics never really came true. And so when we started in Silicon Valley some years ago by a psychologist who said, let's look at the driver. Because if you can do everything you can to the vehicle, but if the driver's not performing the way that they should, you're never going to get what you want from a savings perspective and a safety perspective out of your fleet. And so they really started with that in mind. And so if you look at our pyramid, we always say the driver's at the top. And if you focus on giving the drivers the tools, the training, and the data that they need while they're in the vehicle, you will get the most out of your fleet from a safety, risk reduction, and operational efficiencies perspective. So we've been doing that for 10 years. We recently transitioned over, because of the power of the mobile phone, as Derek mentioned, moved our entire platform to a mobile capability. So again, we are refreshing the way that we look at driver safety and moving over to a mobile platform. And so we are democratizing driver safety, so to speak, making it available to the masses at a very affordable price. And so we deal with some of the largest fleets in the world today that transport our most precious cargo, which is people. So every day we've got millions and millions of passengers driving on vehicles equipped with our mobile technology. We have billions of miles of data behind our technology and our platform, and millions of driving years. And so what that means from a technology and innovation perspective is, as we move our platform over to a mobile-based solution, we are pulling over so much data, more data than anybody else in the industry can say that they have, along with thousands and thousands of different driver profiles and vehicle profiles. So we have pretty much seen every driving style, from a bus driver to a pizza delivery person in a huge double-decker bus in London to a small moped in Singapore. So we know how drivers drive, we know what to expect, and we know how to give them the best tools in the cab without being a distraction for them, but then also giving them that real-time feedback where they can improve the way that they're driving behind the wheel on a constant basis. Now, what this means for us in our next phase and where we're headed from a company perspective is, as I mentioned earlier, we're democratizing that. So we're making it available to cities, as Chelsea had mentioned earlier, as a platform perspective. So as cities begin to think about infrastructure and technology they want to use to help vehicles talk to each other, to help city infrastructure talk to other autonomous vehicles, or possibly use our data to find hotspots on city maps. So I know Vision Zero is a big initiative going nationwide here in the US, overlaying our hotspot data on top of that, where accidents may be most prone to happen, where we're seeing speeding happen most often, where we're seeing cornering, braking events happen most often. We're making that available to now municipalities nationwide, globally, also, to help make their city safer and get towards that zero fatality mission that we're seeing as being a really, really big hot topic. I've only got maybe 1 or 2 minutes, so I did want to close with something that's a little more personal, and why we feel that our system has really matured over the last couple of years, and taking what we've done from a legacy perspective and really making that available to everybody and anybody with a mobile phone. My son recently turned 17 years old, got his license from the state of Texas. We went out and purchased a 2004 Volkswagen for him. And as you guys know, any car past 2002 has got a little OBD2 port in it. They also can, if you connect to that, you can connect to our system. You can also get vehicle data as well as driver safety data. So what we did is we outfitted his car to make sure that we knew where he was at all times, and we could also see his driving style. So we put this system in the vehicle, and so he started driving it. And after about 2 weeks of driving it, I pulled him aside and I said, "Look, Ben, you are going crazy on turns, and our system is smart enough to know." And I showed him the information, I showed him the charts, I showed him all of the training on the back end that we could give him through our system, and said, GreenRoad is telling you you're going to get into an accident on a corner. And being a teenager, he said, no, I'm the best driver there is. So he said, okay, just be mindful when you're taking turns to slow down, because our system is telling you you're going to get in a wreck and you're going to lose control of your car. I went out of town. His mother let him use her car, which is not outfitted with our system. He didn't turn on GreenRoad. I got a call from her on my way to Vegas. He had totaled the car. $40,000 BMW, totaled. He was taking a corner, lost control of the car because he was going too fast. And so when I went back to the offices and I told our developers back in Israel, I said, you guys have really, really built something here that is intuitive, it's predictive, and it's personalized. It takes what we know about driving, it takes what we know about the person behind the wheel, and it takes what we know about the car, and it can tell you ahead of time, here's the risk areas that this driver poses. They did it spot on. 2 weeks later, he got into an accident doing the exact thing that the system said he was going to do. So that's our innovation, and that's our company.
All right.
Yeah, he's fine.
Test. All right, great. Next, thank you, David. Next
I was
up-
upset.
Oh, man. That's, yeah. Next up, we got Bob Newkirk. He's with Tourmaline. So David, that experience is it's about empowering the driver, right? Versus, so it's not about an autonomous thing. It's about that's this long interim where we actually have people in the car and giving them the tools. I noticed that pilots, they spend most of the flight on autopilot.
Yeah.
But when you need a pilot, you really need a pilot. We're not going to, we still need drivers to be empowered.
And we still think, just from an autonomous perspective, taking all that data and that learning and applying it to profiles for autonomous cars as well.
Great, thanks. Ready, Bob?
Well, pleasure to meet everyone. This is our first meeting since you're filling in, and I'm filling in too for Dr. Lucas Kuhn, who's the founder of Tourmaline Labs. My name's Robert Newkirk. I'm the head of strategy and partnerships. So we'll see what deck he put together for us. I got a little bit of input, but when we were talking this morning about the whole IoT stack, I just love hearing your story because it sounds like we may have a few partnerships here, possibilities from the panel I'm presenting on. It's not just about gathering data. It's about making decisions. Is it on? Is it off? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it moving? Is it still? Is it full? Is it empty? And so we really focused on making better decisions. And as we looked across the industry at the different verticals, we decided that motion behavior and motion data had a high value to it. So specifically, as we looked across some of the core 5 or 6 verticals we wanted to focus in on, we first initially launched in transportation. So going to the GreenRoad story that you were just telling, the appalling statistics here in the United States is worsening with distracted driving, and we have over 30,000 deaths per year here in the United States, which is appalling. Still have over 5 million accidents, and this leads to billions of dollars of associated dollars of cost. So when we looked at motion behavior scoring, we look at this sensor output, and we have to extract that data to get behavioral data, and then we need a scoring system. But inherently, it's a challenge to get that data in as far as the quality of the data. The data is very noisy. When you look at the different sensors that are out there, there's a lot of different hardware sensors, as well as even the same hardware sensor. We get data that does not match up. So you have to have a way to somehow clean that data. And then also the behavior extraction. When you start looking at data, you start asking yourself, well, this is a data set. Was that a pothole that I just hit, or was that a hard brake? So you have to be able to extract the data and make sense of the data. And then you need a scoring system around that, and that's where context matters. And what I mean by context, are you driving in a city? Are you driving on a highway? Are you driving at night? Are you driving during the day? Are you in a weather condition? Is it rainy? Is it snowy? Is it clear weather out? So the context of the driver also matters within the scoring system. So Tourmaline Labs, we built a machine learning, artificial intelligence, sensor to score platform where we take the sensor data in, and you need to clean and filter and calibrate that data. Otherwise, you will get that noisy data that gives you biased data when you move up the platform into extracting and learning and classifying into the behavior data, and ultimately contextualizing that data, normalizing that data, and localizing. What I mean by localizing, as we started looking at driver behavior across the different countries, Brazil, inherently, they drive differently than they do in the United States than they do in Germany. And even here regionally, if you look at how people drive in Texas versus Florida versus New York or Kansas or Los Angeles, we start seeing that they drive differently within that local area, within a population, and within the context of the different feeds of data that we could bring in to make that score a richer score. So we commercialized this last year, and the founders came out of Qualcomm, a bunch of very smart data scientists out of Qualcomm and Park that, for 2 years were programming this. And as we commercialized it, the first use case that came on board is fleet management companies. Found this very valuable to improve safety and productivity, reduce fuel costs, and of course the driver coaching. Once you have a score, and it's a fair score, and it's not a biased score, and it's contextualized and localized, the value that goes way up in the driver coaching and driving behavior. And soon we were approached by insurance companies. So if you think of Progressive that did it with the dongle, we're removing that dongle component and just doing it on the smartphone now. So we're taking that 50-cent sensor that's in a smartphone and making it act like an $80 sensor to get really high value data through that platform so that the scoring is fair. So the user-based insurance companies have really used this as a marketing type of platform for acquisition of customers, retention, and loyalty, retention for customers. So once we had the mobile piece built, we started getting a lot of inquiries from companies that had the dongles, and yes, it's disruptive to go just mobile, but they also have a data set. Matter of fact, they have a very rich data set, as he was explaining. There's thousands and millions of these dongles that are out there. So we opened up our platform and said, okay, well, we can put an SDK where you can put this in any other mobile application, or we'll have some APIs that will allow you to send us your data. We'll run it through our platform so it gives you that clean score, and then we'll provide that back to you, and you can add it as a feature, as a service. So from 2016 to 2017, Tourmaline Labs has really evolved from being a software as a service and a mobile app company to a platform and service that can take that data and service it to many more users globally. And of course, in machine learning, the bigger the data set and the bigger the population, the richer the machine learning is. So we now have 4 product lines. We have the behavior set, which allows you to ingest that API data and then send it back. SDK can take you into a mobile platform, so existing brands that already have many users out there that have drivers can pull this into their own application. And then we decided to white label the fleet application and user-based insurance so we could get mass adoption globally. And we now have started collecting so much data, we see that there's opportunities for monetization around data exchange platform as well. So tomorrow I'll be going into a deeper dive of this, and if you're interested at 4:30 p.m. right here in room 4, I'll be talking about shaping driver behavior with machine learning.
Great. Bob, thank you very much. All right. So Just a quick summary of the three, and then I'll ask a couple of questions and invite anyone to jump in with a question if you'd like as well. First, you can see that, so as I mentioned, the Autotech Council tries to find great ideas and innovators, and we had some mention, well, we're not exactly a small company. It's very interesting, you point that it's like being carded when you're overage, but it's flattering to get carded, and it's flattering to be considered an innovator when you're a larger company. So in both ways, it's a good thing. But today, of course, the three companies we have up here that we invited the Autotech has brought to make this panel, the focus, we want to have that cross area of interest between just Silicon Valley innovation and connectivity and IoT. So all three companies represent interesting ways that we can extract value from mobility, from smarter vehicles with that connectivity element. My first question will go to Rui, but it's kind of I'm going to do a comment and ask you to comment on my comment. It's a really interesting story that I got. I first bought my first Tesla in 2013. Love it, awesome. But the interesting thing is, they told me that, listen, there's an AT&T radio in this thing. In the meantime, for now, we haven't figured out the billing model. Tesla will cover your bill for connectivity. But we reserve the right. Expect very soon, we're going to push that onto you, the person who bought this car, and you're going to have to pay for a monthly bill to connect your Tesla. So I waited, and I waited, and I waited. I sold that Tesla after 2.5 years, bought another Tesla, same thing. Currently, we're paying the bill, but we may reserve the right. It's been 1.5 years with that Tesla. So now it's been about 4 years. These guys have not pushed the bill to me. And you start wondering, well, what the heck? They really want to eat that bill? And when it was just 10,000 cars or 20,000 cars sold, no big deal. But they've sold over 100,000 cars now. So why do they want to pay our bill instead of passing it over? And I think the answer is pretty clear at this point. They're deriving more value by paying my bill than they would by passing it off to me and having me say, well, then you can't do what you want. Only my streaming radio goes through it. Right now, they're doing my streaming radio, but they're also uploading a tremendous amount of data from the car. So, Reed, to your point, you're talking about connecting vehicles as well. There's a lot of value that Tesla's not overtly telling me they're getting by connecting my car, right? And that's kind of what you guys provide to these smart cities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm not sure if this is working or not. Is this working now? No. I can stop it. Or this is, anyway. Okay, cool. Thank you. So for sure, so the one reason, well, there are several reasons why Tesla and other companies or car manufacturers are doing that is because the value that they extract from every single megabyte they get from your car is tremendous. It's tremendous not only because they will learn more to improve their platform, but also because they will get to know to enable new services that Tesla is going to unveil in the future. So there is tremendous value. However, it's still a big cost center for Tesla right now, and for sure they are searching for alternatives on how to offload that data. And I think in the recent models, whenever they are in the local Wi-Fi, they do the software updates throughout there. But then if there's a new software update, takes more than 24 hours, and they still need to update the car, they will do it via cellular. However, again, the learning opportunity with the data that you can extract from any kind of vehicle, it's tremendous. And now you can think about all the other vehicles that are there in the aftermarket. How do you extract that data from there? And that's where we are positioning ourselves.
And you guys
now.
are also being able to, bringing in Wi-Fi and interesting networking technologies, Wi-Fi, to leverage the cheaper networking technology as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cellular is very expensive. It's still spotty around cities. And even when you are in cities like New York, the cellular infrastructure was not designed for the number of devices that are actually there. So therefore, these new networks or new wireless technologies that we are actually bringing to the market are actually interesting to help bring more data, because they always will need more data.
David, you talk about empowering the drivers. Also, if I see a hand, I'll go to you guys if you have the question. You talk about empowering drivers. Is that what it is? Is it more about empowering the driver or empowering the employer or the dad and mom? Which one is your main target at this point, or is it just
we've never seen our system as if you think about the carrot and stick mentality, we've never seen our system as a stick.
Yep.
It's always been giving the driver the flexibility to learn on their own terms, and then we also created a scheme where they're able to get rewarded either through employer rewards.
Yep.
Or real-time certificates and rewards that they can receive via the mobile app. So it's about them gamifying the system to
Yep.
allow them to do better in a peer environment.
Yeah, it's interesting. When they first brought out satellite tracking for transport trucks a long time ago, of course, but at the time, my neighbor owned a fleet of 50 trucks, and he implemented it, and he immediately, there was people talking in his local newspaper like, oh, this is terrible, and it's bad treatment of employees, and he'll lose all of his drivers. And he bought 50 trucks, about 50 drivers, and he lost about 4 drivers. And, but the other 46 actually started appreciating, and this is like 25 years ago or more. But he lost way fewer than even he expected. And the reason is the good drivers, which he was trying to hire in the first place, didn't mind. This was helping them and rewarding them. And the 4 that he lost were his most accident-prone drivers. So
Yeah,
you're finding that the psychology people say, this is a tool I can use, or is this something that's, Big Brother is watching me?
We're actually seeing HR departments want to come to us now and utilize the technology to help retain employees from an education perspective too. So.
Cool. And Bob, last question to you. Sounds like you started out doing the end-to-end solution. You've moved up and said, we'll just do this platform that does the analytics on the side. So do you offer that as a white label service to anybody who's collecting, car makers, Progressive who have their own dongle, kind of offer, hey, we can do more with your data than you're currently doing?
Yeah, so that's what's really happened between 2016 and 2017. We started with the mobile app. And then once we realized, and what we patented, was everything on the back end and the platform and the true scoring, or the best fair scoring. And so once we had that recognition of that's where the real value is, we just opened up the platform. So we have SDKs and APIs, and sure enough, what we're picking up now is a lot of the dongle providers want to run their data. Some of them have been trying to build driver behavior things for the last year or two, and they're just saying, you know what, you guys have already built it, you've already patented it, your scores are better, we're just going to use your system. So that's what they're doing, is they're just white labeling it and taking it to market.
Sounds good. So I'd like to invite anyone, if you guys know of any startups in the mobile, we're going to have a question. If you know any startups in the mobility or transport space, let me know. We can present them in front of some good car companies and tier 1 vendors out in Silicon Valley. And I don't think we have time. We don't have time for the question, apologize. And we can talk after, but thanks to Rui, David, and Bob. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.